Right, yes, so a bit of an unplanned CodeZone. Well, not unplanned, it is 8 p.m. on a Tuesday, but at the moment I can't commit to any particular schedule. It's just all falling apart my life as I go through day by day. So, who have we got? We've got Christoph in the chat already asking about F Sharp. I've no experience of F Sharp, really, other than seeing a few streams about it. I don't know. I've yet to sort of... Maybe I work in the wrong industry. I don't work with sort of databases and utilities and that sort of thing. I work very much in embedded systems, and of course, yeah, you tend to just see C++ and C in those industries. So I don't know. The answer is I don't know. I know there are some F-sharp programmers that'll probably be in the chat later on. Maybe bring it back up and see how they get on. Now, what I wanted to do tonight was something a little bit different. Still space thing, but I wanted to bring in, let me just find where I've put it. Where have I put it? There we go. I have a whole armada of PegXs which are unreleased, and I need to get them released, and so they all need a little bit of work. And one of the things I've seen quite a few people doing on the Discord server is creating their own sort of wireframe rendering frameworks, which is all very interesting and good stuff. But the truth is, I already have one sort of made up and done. I thought we'd have a look at it today and look at how we can use it in the Space Thing framework, because I think it gives us the ability to add sort of lots of debug overlays that are almost free. So we'll see how well that goes. Oh, we've got some viewers at last. That's good. Good. I don't know how to get rid of these. There's something's blocking my Twitch chat, so it's a bit small on the screen today. So I apologise if I do miss the messages. Now, I've created a small test project in the past whilst I was developing this wireframe PegX, but this was towards the end of last year, and I can't remember how it's used. So we're going to have a look inside the header file for the extension and actually have a look at what's there and how it works, because it's a little bit different to how we do most of the extensions. Motbus2, hello. Missed some updates. How is the baby? The baby is noisy. That's what I'm going to say. Noisy. Noisy, occasionally drippy, but on the whole, still rather lovely. Megetsub, hello. Go Gruffler, hello. Shotgun seat. Yes, sounds like a healthy baby to me. Well, she's certainly got a set of lungs on her, that's for sure. It seems to be that every day at about the same time, it's awkwardly about 7:30, about half an hour ago, she starts screaming for about an hour. They say this could be colic, but I can't sort of find any factual scientific evidence. One, that colic exists, and two, that any of the cures for it are anything other than hocus pocus bunkum. If you've got sort of actual articles that can define what this phenomena might be, I'd be very interested in seeing them. How many hours have you slept? Very, very few. I think in total, in the last week, on average, I'm getting about 4 hours sleep in 24. But that's fragmented, so we're waking up every hour and a half, usually for about a 45-minute period. So it's pretty grueling at the moment, to be honest. But I'm powering through it. Megetsub has a headache. Must be the low pressure and heat. I get headaches when the pressure changes too. And we've got pouring rain here at the moment. It's been really, really hot for the last couple of days, but we had some really cracking storms as well. Oscar Dan, hello. Oh, very good. So we've got some people here. Good. So, yes, to those who didn't miss the very start of this, I have a collection of PegX or Pixel Game Engine extensions, which are sort of all hidden and behind the scenes, but one of the ones that I've been enjoying, and the reason I've been enjoying is I've actually been using it for work, so I don't all the license probabilities and problems that's going to bring up, I have no idea. But it's actually quite a useful one because it allows you to create sort of hierarchies of geometry and see how they interact. And I thought it would be useful to have this in the space thing. One, because I could make the PegX a little bit more mature and get it released. Two, it's got some interesting features in how the PegX itself is constructed. And three, well, I've got to say this very, very carefully because I don't want people to get too excited. It's kind of paving the way for how I envisage Pixel Game Engine 3.0 to come together. So, Well, that's a discussion for another time, and I've got to discuss that with lots of other people before we do any sort of further on that. And it won't be for quite some time, but it was in the back of my mind when I was creating this PegX. Sounds like time for a Red Bull. I've had enough Red Bulls at the moment. Is it intended that we can ping Javid's list on Discord? Javid's list. No, if you've got to be nominated to be on Javid's list. There we go. A non-exhaustive list of companies using F# and Y. So the stream opened today with discussion about F# and whether it's relevant in the industry. And I remember I'm sure maybe have I seen this list before. Let me just have a quick look at it, because basically everybody using it was some fringe groups and bits and pieces of research departments at the basements of some of the big tech companies maybe using F#. There wasn't actually sort of a definitive, yes, this is what we're using and it's brilliant because it's doing all. It's very much like a language that exists because somebody had the motivation to go and put it together in the .NET framework. But, maybe I'll be proven. I have nothing against it. I just can't really see it sort of becoming a mainstream thing. Right. Sorry, Mr. Hello there. So we've got Null Alternative. Hello, yes, to the CodeZone. Alex, hello, good evening. Last stream, Alt F4, Crash 4, doing a bit of coding, good, yes. So Alex is playing through Crash 4, he's trying to speed run it, and he's up to about, I don't know, day 7 on the speed run, so it's not doing too bad. And yes, you need to be careful playing with Javid's list, because Javid's list may bite you if you're not sure what you're doing with it. Right, okay, we've had enough sort of introductory fluff. Let's get on with the what we're here to talk about. And that is, I want to sort of introduce this wireframe PegX. So I've seen on the Discord, quite a few people have done wireframe stuff. It seems to be a popular little project that people enjoy. And in fact, even quite recently, there was a wireframe extension floating around on the Discord. I can't recall who put it together, but they were quite pleased with it. It had lots of different geometry and shapes and ways of rendering things. And I always have a little wry smile when I see something like that, because I always think, well, hang on, I've got one of those myself. And the trouble is now, as soon as I announce it, people are going to think I've stolen their idea and things. But hey, we'll live with that. But let's have a look what's going on inside this extension. So I'm going to open this file. And it starts off exactly the same way as all of the other PegXs, but it's written in a slightly more modern feel of things. I'm hoping that the text size is suitable there. Now, the first thing it'll do is produce this mat3 generic. So this is a matrix used for all of the 2D operations. So it's only a 2D wireframe library. And it's basically the same as the matrix operations in the Graphics 2D extension, which was released years ago now. Nobody really uses since decals came along. But it formalized that a little bit, and it works. It's compatible with the Vector 2D types in the Pixel game engine too. So standard matrix stuff, we can clear it, set it to an identity, and it's got some built-ins to do the convenient things for us. It probably needs a few more things too, such as maybe fancy ways of specifying angles and things relative to other things. Just having a quick glance here. What have we got? So we've got we get some standard array. Is that what I've done? I can't see anything centered. What's centered? No. Can't see anything centered. Oh, I don't know, Magetsu. Your headache's getting in the way. So, yes, basic standard matrix type with the ability to work with the Vector 2D types provided by the game engine itself. Now, the extension falls under this wire namespace. And it defines something called a model. And the model itself is really the collection of, well, not quite, the mesh itself here. So we have a type def bit, which is this mesh. It's just a collection of 2D points. Now, the model encapsulates a mesh and gives it sort of this, these sort of real-world coordinates and transformations being applied to it. So we can basically define a square, and we can then set the rotation of that square, set the offset and things. and draw it in the world as we see fit. And we can draw it with several different ways too. But one of the other things that's interesting is that the model itself has a vector of pointers to children. And so any transformation that's applied to this particular model is also applied to then all of the children. So everything can move relative. And the reason I've been using it at work is it's interesting for doing robotic joints and things that move. So I can specify angles and I can visualize how that construction is moving around as one entity. So it's quite nice in a scene graphy sort of way. But it's purely 2D, It could work alongside something like Box 2D. Oh, hang on. I've got an important message. I have to make sure that these messages are not telling me I have to go and rescue a baby from electrocuting themselves or something like that. No, it doesn't seem too bad. Good. So yes, the ability to have children means that any sort of transformations needs to propagate through to those children too. So quite an important thing that they can have children. And we can see here that we've got the points. The local points represents everything's trying to be optimized for speed a little bit here. So there is some duplication of data, but it's okay. We've got a mesh of local points. That's the thing that defines the model. Now, some of those die-hard fans out there that remember the console game engine way back when, we actually had something similar for things like the Worms series and the Asteroid series, where we could draw these wireframe models. We kept two sort of arrays of points. One was the one that defines what the model is, and one that defined where it is in the world. Because they're not quite the same. This one is relative to the origin. Now, Alter Ego in the chat will be... we had a long discussion trying to work out what the difference was between origins, between models. But this one is relative to the model's own origin, and this set of points is relative to the origin of the world after the transformations have taken place. Let's have a quick catch-up. Oh, Speedy's here. Hello. Javid is a pretty common name in my country. Where are you from? I'm from the UK. It's not a common name here. Do you use macros? Sometimes. Back in my day, Javid used console for his video. Yes. Feels like an age ago now, doesn't it? I kind of wish that I began everything with the Pixel game engine and not the console game engine, but hey, can't turn back time. So yes, there we have a vector of pointers to the children. Now, at some point I might try and smarten all of this up, because I've been trying to sort of flex some of my more modern-y kind of muscles. Because one of the things I wanted to try was using the inline function as part of defining the PegAxis. So here I've created some basic global functions which act as a bit like factory functions to develop meshes conveniently. So if you wanted a model that was a circle, we can call this mesh circle function. We specify radius and how many points it should make up, because it doesn't draw it as a circle, it draws it as a set of connected line segments instead. And so if we had more line segments, the circle looks rounder. You'd be surprised how few line segments you need for a circle to look pretty round on a screen. And I'm sure that there's some nerds in the chat that can do the information theory and the derivations to work out the resolution of the screen relative to the number of points you need to define your circle. I'm sure there's some fancy maths that'll go and do that. Adam, hello, thank you. Yes, on the new edition, it's we've discussed that so far. The new edition is noisy and drippy. 4. There we go. So Dandestein is saying that 4 is enough points for all circles to be represented with infinite accuracy on a 2D display. So there we go. It's good. We've got another factory function here, which is rectangle. So we just specify a size. Now it assumes that you're going to be specifying top left as being the origin of your rectangle, but you don't have to, of course. You can specify the middle of the rectangle as being the origin, and it will perform the little offset for you there. I've also got this cool one because I was playing around with it at work. This one will create a gear shape based on the number of teeth and things, and you can then have gears that look like they're meshed together. Hey, Danicon. Yeah, I did like using the console. I still do like using the console. It's just Windows kept playing around with the console, made it very difficult. Draw a quad and measure the distance from the quad center. If the distance is more than the circle radius, discard the pixels. Suspicious. Yes, the gear one has some interesting stuff to create it, because for a gear you want to do sort of 2 circles and sort of ping pong between the inner and outer circles, and I'm ping ponging with this this little ternary expression here. We'll try and render some stuff with that later on. Now, this is where things get a little bit interesting. Is we've got the ability to draw a model. And at the moment, let's just ignore the fact that there's a template at the top. We'll come back to that. All it's doing when we draw something is it gets the points which have been transformed. And I can't remember where we actually do the transform. I think we may have to do the transform sort of prior to this. Let me quickly scan through one of my little demos that I made with this. Because I think, yeah, you do. Yeah, okay, so we specify, update in world. That's the function we need to call. So there's a function that we would call on all of the models, which would then go and apply all the transformations as and when we need them. So by the time we get to drawing them, we assume we've got the set of points that we need in order to render the model in the world. And to begin with, it just goes point to point and renders them all with line segments, and it joins them. So it always assumes the models are closed as well. That could be a modification we make for the future. Then we've got the ability to draw the nodes. So it's quite interesting to debug where the points are. So if you set this flag when you're doing the rendering, we can render sort of the individual points at the ends of the line segments. They've got some hard-coded magic numbers in there. Again, stuff to try and mature into this extension. Then we've got the origin. So I found it quite useful just to have a little indicator of where the origin of that particular model existed. Particularly when I started linking things together and building things, we can specify where things are relative to other things. And if the model has children, we just recursively go and draw those children. Now, what's interesting here, and what sort of started making me think about sort of Pixel Game Engine 3, and as I said, we don't want to get too excited about it, is I can pass in something in this template to call these draw lines and fill circles upon. And the reason I've done it this way is I could pass in the Pixel Game Engine. It has draw line functions, it has fill circle functions. I can also pass in a transformed view. It has draw line functions, it has fill circle functions, all with exactly the same prototype. There's a common interface between the two, and that's not by accident. This is sort of a grander design arc that I'm thinking of going down with this project. That by defining this sort of singular interface for all of the drawing routines, then we can start doing more interesting things with exactly this sort of thing. So we can have models that can draw themselves depending on the type of renderer that you've got in the background, whether it be a pixel shading renderer, with a pixel game engine renderer, the transform view renderer, something totally custom. It just allows you to sort of have that level of abstraction, and I found it quite useful, specifically with being able to do transform view and pixel game engines without changing any code. We'll definitely be doing that as part of the space thing, so that's probably where we're going to get up to, I think. Duck typing to 11, no idea. Moscow bish. How do I get rid of these? Oh, there we go. I've clicked on it. There's like, do you have a load of garbage at the top of your Twitch chat, which is basically just telling you all sorts of things about emojis and just that kind of junk. Anyway, I don't like it. I think it's a waste of time. Right, so carrying on going down the extension, we can see that these were all defined as inline, and that's sort of a bit of a new thing as well. So the later C compilers will sort of glue together the files without the necessary header guards and that sort of stuff we would usually do for the extensions. It's sort of a cheap way of just having the function defined in one place. But here we've got now the implementation of the model itself, and this is standard fare now. It's setters and getters setting things, and here we are, the update in world function. Now we can pass in a matrix to define what that the transformation is in the world. Now by default you would always pass in an identity matrix if you don't want the shape to have any kind of transformation at all. Once you've given it this matrix, it will then use that same matrix to then go and calculate its child's positions based on their own local transformations. And this is how you sort of implement this scene graph technique. So we just go and transform all of the vertices, and then we go and recursively iterate through all of the children. Very simple stuff. And we'll try doing that, because what I thought we would do is we started rendering some spaceships in Space Thing in the last CodeZone episode. There should have been one on Friday, by the way. I apologise for that. It just didn't happen. We rendered some spaceships, but actually all we did was render some gigantic squares, and eventually we got them to move. That kind of works, but I thought it would be nicer to have a model that could basically, for now, define things in our world. So I was thinking of a little triangle, just basically an asteroid-style spaceship, to define a ship, since we've not got any artwork really, and we can see what direction it's going in, and we can have other things attached to it, just as debug information. That's really what this library is going to be useful for, is debug overlays. So I might also put back in the orbital paths of the planets. Before, we were doing it in the sprite space using CPU rendering to draw circles, and that was very, very costly. Now, using this approach, well, it could still be costly if we use the Pixel game engine, but one of the things we can do, and we may have to create an additional function in here, is we can use the decal rendering facilities of the Pixel game engine to render arbitrary size polygons, up to 128 vertices. So, we will see how we get with that. Complicated stuff. Right, so where do we begin? Let's just see if anything actually compiles and runs, because I've not touched the code other than including this header file since the last episode. So where was it left off? That was it. We had some GUI in the way, and I think we made it so we could physically see the space stations and the routes between them. And every time we created a route, we also then created a spaceship. So it was our key to create the route. So there we go. That goes and creates a big white square which appears at the origin of the universe for some reason, and the white square autopilots towards the destination. Now let's go and create another one whilst that one's getting there. So we'll route you to there. Now we can see another white square. So this is the entity component system doing its thing. We just throw entities into the soup and they go away and just work and do what they should do. And this white square was an interesting way to debug the selection and the state machine that was going on, but it looks dreadful in comparison to the rest of the system. Good. So the objective is to try, and we've got this little thing as well, this jitter around here. We will sort that out, but probably not today. The idea to get rid of this is we will have some sort of synchronization lock between the objects. We've discussed that before in previous episodes, but we'll worry about that some other time. Right. So I need to go and remember how to use this wireframe extension in some detail. Now, fortunately, I have a little demo application, so I will be bringing in some code and sort of changing it about as and when. Well, let's have a think about replacing that big white square with a model. I even have to remember, where did we put the big white square? So I have a function that was render spaceships, and all we did was do this TV fillback decal. That was our big white square. But we don't want to do that anymore. Instead, we want to draw a mesh. And I need to go and create a mesh somewhere. So let's go to the main game engine. We've automatically included the wireframe extension now by virtue of it being in the CPP file. So we can see we've got the transform view and we've got the wireframe extension. When will this Pixel actual game engine with navbar be released? With navbar? You mean the menu bar at the top? Yeah, it's pretty cool, my menu bar. The GUI extension is almost there. It's had a little bit of work done on it over the last week, but I've not done any changes in this at the moment. Yeah, the menu bar. I think it's a really popular request. Everybody wants this GUI stuff. I just need to make sure that it's... The trouble is, if I go and release this now, probably maybe a good 20 or 30 people are going to want to start using it and experimenting with it. And I'm not necessarily in a position where I can support that many people in real time trying to hack it all together. So I'd be keen on getting some documentation put together and a couple of demo applications to show how that all works. I know that the early adopters of it will be reasonably competent using the Pixel game engine anyway, but you'll always get some people that just it's brand new to them. They're not familiar with the concepts of GUI, and it's not trivial. Like, so even though everything Pixel game engine related tries to be really simple and tries to be accessible, GUI stuff just generally isn't. There's always stuff you've got to think about when you're working with GUIs. I don't know why you said navbar. Right, so I've created then, well, I've not created it yet, but I need to create, in my space thing, I need to create, what do I need to create? What is my little example program? I need to create a model. Okay, so let's go down here. Let's start at the bottom. Oh, we'll see wire model. And what we'll have here is mod, oh dear. Going well already, isn't it? Spaceship. Now, why have I not got my wireframe? Why has that not been included? Oh, we still need to include it up here, don't I? Yeah, there we go. Oh, there's a big spider walking down my wall. Stay away from that. Have I put that in my deployment folder? I can't remember. Wireframe.h. Yeah, okay. It's the IntelliSense is being a bit slow. So that allows me to create my model. Now, I don't have a model generator for Spaceship at the moment, so I'm just going to replace it with just a simple. We'll stick with rectangle just for the time being whilst we get things up and running. So let's start with that. So I'll need to create this model, and I'm going to do that for now in onUserCreate. Now we'll do that at the bottom here. Mod spaceship equals, I will see, wire mesh. Oh, should we draw it as a little gear? Why not? Right, the gears are fun. So this is going to have, I don't know, we're picking some numbers. 20 teeth. Outer radius is going to be 100. This may all look terrible when we do it. Inner radius is going to be 80. I think that's it. What's my equals here? These. Oh, yes. Okay. So that's the mesh. The model encapsulates the mesh. So hang on. Where am I creating these things? There we go. So what I want to do is set the mesh. There we go. I can't remember how any of this works. So a mesh is just the collection of points. The model is the points and the transformation. There we are. Good. Okay. Everyone wants GUI stuff because they all want their own Pixel game operating system. It'll be good stuff, the GUI, when it's reasonably functional. The people will always try and push it beyond what it can do, and then start complaining, "Oh, well, in Qt I can do this." Well, you know, there are limitations to what it can do. It should be the sort of level of ability I'm aiming for with it is if you could implement, say, Roller Coaster Tycoon. That I always felt had a very impressive. Simple GUI. It's due to the unintuitive nature of process of creating GUIs. Yeah, well, as people on the Discord will attest, we've had many discussions about the complexity of GUIs, and on the whole, GUIs tend to be a bit of a parent-child framework. It's a hierarchy. That makes sense. It makes sort of intuitive sense, but that comes with its own complexity about ownership. When you're creating these things, you sort of end up with invariably this sort of spread of responsibility throughout the system. And some people don't like that. Some people including myself, often feels that the code can get very, very wordy, particularly if you want to go down the route of trying to do it modern and you start using smart pointers all over the place. Suddenly everything becomes quite verbose. And I find that a bit tedious when I'm used to things like WX widgets, which can do all of that sort of stuff, and it does it all smartly and hidden in the background. But that's a huge framework. I've got to try and fit it all into sort of one small file that people can digest. So a little bit of things to think about. I can't see the spider anymore, so I'm assuming it's gone away. Yeah, ImGUI's pretty good, and if you do want to use Pixel Game Engine with ImGUI, you can do that. Our very own Danderstein has an incredibly competent extension which does wrap up ImGUI, and people have used that to all sorts of different projects and applications. There was a guy on the Discord server called Bispu. He's been in a couple of showcases. He really did use the ImGUI extension to do all of his prototyping work. It's a shame Bispu has since left the Discord server, but we wish you well, Bispu, with whatever you're doing. It really grinds my gears to inherit classes to implement custom features. Yeah, I think I agree with you, Magetsu. I think that's. I mean, wasn't it Diego's been working on sort of a data-oriented base GUI system? I don't necessarily feel that that's the right approach either. And that's one of the things I wanted to explore with creating my own GUI framework. Is actually, what are there alternative ways of doing it? And I must confess, what we've ended up with was about my sort of 6th attempt at trying to make something work. That's trying to straddle the boundaries between being easy to implement and sort of functional enough. If I go to what we've just seen here, so this is defining the menu bar, for example. I think that's quite a nice way to do it. At least that's how I like doing it. But it's not very dynamic. So if you wanted to sort of insert and inject other things, it's a vector. You can do it, but you have to know what you're doing. And I think it's that sort of nuance which stops it from being super accessible. A button on a form, dead simple. But when you start really getting into all of the stuff GUIs actually do, then they become very, very complex very quickly. Channel Mouse, where are we up to? Right, we are implementing a PegX that I've sort of had kicking around for a while, and I wanted to bring it into the Space Thing because Space Thing is my vehicle for exploring my own technologies as well as making them mature enough to release, and it's a extension dedicated to just drawing wireframe stuff. So that's where we're up to, and we're going to try replacing the spaceships that we made in the last episode, which were big white squares floating through space. We're oddly going to replace them with gears, probably misshapen gears and all sorts of the incorrect resolution. So it's going to be a bit of fun. So once I've got my model of the spaceship, excuse me, I do need to draw it somewhere. And we'll do that in the graphics function. Now, one of the things we should be able to do with this is, I think we just call OLC wire draw, OLX. Oh, I like that. OLC wire draw model. Now, this is a template function, which is interesting in its own right. If you're not super familiar with C++, you can do this now. You can actually have templates on your functions. They don't have to be on the classes. And it's expecting something. Now, one of the things I can pass to it is I can pass to it the Pixel Game Engine. Like so. And that will use the standard Pixel Game Engine drawing routines in order to draw the object to the screen. And I would pass in, I think I need to pass in this case it's a reference to the engine, and then I pass in the model that we're drawing, mmod spaceship, and then I pass in the colour that we want to draw, so I'm going to draw that as white. And there's a bunch of flags, and I think if by default it just draws it with everything enabled. So that would use the standard Pixel Game Engine routines to draw this spaceship. Now, we're not using the standard Pixel Game Engine. I want to use the transform view that we're using to draw everything for the Space Thing application. Morris, you are fashionably late. You fashionista, you. It sounds Chinese, does it? Well, yes, draw model I can I think I can understand that being misrepresented as the Chinese language. So instead of passing in the OLC Pixel Game Engine, I can pass in transformed view. Oh, got to spell it right though first. And this time I don't pass in this, I just pass in the transformed view that I'm using. And so I've now changed the thing that's responsible for all of the rendering in the background. And I really like this pattern, and we will explore this pattern a little bit more, I think, in future updates to the Pixel Game Engine. Yeah, you don't think... Yeah, I think you're right, Magetsub. I think you don't need to specify it manually. I'm choosing to specify, yes, if I get rid of that, it should be okay. It should be smart enough to work out what's going on anyway. But I'm leaving it in just to be a little bit verbose about it. Because that way I can see that there is a distinct difference between the two. Now, I've no idea what's going to happen here, but I do know that at some point I need to update the model of the spaceship for being in the world. And I, again, need to go and pinch some code to see what that was to set it up. Let's go and have a look. Because I remember creating... There we go. So we create an identity matrix. Right. That's okay. Then we needed to update this in the world somehow. So I think if I specify this, let's just say, so let's see what happens. So m mod spaceship dot update in world. Let's do that. That identity. So this should draw, in principle, it should draw our gears. I'm just wondering if it will, because it's going to draw it at the moment using CPU sort of drawing routines. So it's going to be drawing it as pixels, which means we might not be able to see anything. Let's just see if we get it even to compile to begin with. I don't know what scale anything's going to be drawn at. I don't really know what's going to happen here, so it'll be exciting to see. But we might not be able to see anything because as we know, as we draw things using the sprite framework, the decals are drawn on top of them. So only decals that are drawn using additive mode will we actually see anything behind them. We can see what happens there. Let's have a look. So it's possible, but I can't really tell. Maybe we should choose a different colour just in case it is drawing it somewhere. Yeah, okay, I think we'll choose a different colour. Let's choose something that's going to be nice and visible. Green. But I don't think we can. Let's just change. Let's just try that as the pixel game. Let's just start from the beginning and make sure we're actually drawing anything at all. So I'm going to explicitly set this one again to pixel game engine and specify this one as star this, just so we know what it is. Now, this one should draw things top left. But there's all sorts of stuff also being drawn. Oh, build errors on this one. Scale to world is not a member of Pixel Game Engine. Oh, interesting. Okay, that's why I wanted to do some specialization. We're going to have to go back to transform view for the time being. That's no good, is it? Yeah, okay. Put that back. So this is what I was talking about before. I want to define a sort of single interface that represents the Pixel Game Engine and all of its, specifically its drawing routines. And I think we'll be looking at that for the next iteration of Pixel Game Engine. Right, why are we not going to see this? What's going on? I'm looking carefully in the top corner just to see if anything resembles a sprite, but I've got a feeling we're drawing on top of it, so I may just have to momentarily do everything except sorry, only do render spaceships and ignore absolutely everything else. Let's try that. So let's go back to our main. I don't think there's anything else I need to actually update. I'm just double checking that. No, I think that's all okay. It's interesting when you've written code and you've completely forgotten how to use it. This is, if anything, this is a lesson in you should write documentation for your own programs. All of those people that don't write documentation, you're going to end up like me, struggling with your own code. I want to stop drawing things. That's what I'm trying to do, isn't it? So let's go through to where we're drawing stuff. I'm just zooming out so I can find it a bit quicker. There we go. So I don't want to render the solar system. I don't want to render the stars. I don't want to render the planets, moons, asteroids, space stations, or routes. All I want it to do is render the spaceships. And we've still got that mystery lol there. I can't remember what that was for. So it should be black. Okay, we've still got the GUI layer on top. I still can't see if there's any model anywhere. I'm just going to take a chance on this and just see if it is actually rendering it, but is it rendering it very, very, very small? So the trouble is now I can't really zoom in on the origin of the universe anymore because I can't really see where it is. It's an interesting problem. I think we'll have to get the old debugger out and actually see what the rendering is doing in this instance. I've probably forgotten some fundamental switch that I need to turn on. I wonder if the default flags are actually what I thought they were. I thought if you just ignored them, it's going to draw everything. So setting the flags to -1 should set everything to 1, which I guess means it will draw the nodes and it will draw the origin and it will draw the lines. But we're going to have to go and have a look at this. I'm wondering. I've made a sneaky change to the Pixel game engine as well, which is going to be released in 2.17. And what I've changed is from an early prototype, I changed the draw line function. Let me go and find it. There we are. So the change that I made to draw line is it now clips the line to the screen. Because previously, if you drew a line and you were really zoomed in on it, you'd end up drawing billions and billions of pixels. It didn't make any difference. So the Pixel game engine didn't care. So I've added some clipping, and the clipping that I've added to full disclosure here, because I don't want to take credit for anybody else's work, is just the Cohen-Sutherland algorithm. And this is almost as straight up as it is written on Wikipedia. It's just converted into a slightly tidier C++ form for me. So this will actually clip the lines to the screen. I'm just wondering if this is now actually causing us some problems. We probably need to run some tests of the code, don't we? Okay, let's try just regularly drawing a line. That might actually be quite an important thing to do. Yeah, interesting. Because we're also clearing to blank as well, aren't we? That also might be a problem because we're setting all of the alphas in this layer. Oh, all sorts of interesting things to start attacking here. Good stuff. Right, so by clear... I don't know why we've got stars there, I don't know. But we have got stars there. I don't know why we've got stars there all of a sudden. I must be drawing the stars in some layer to begin with and forgetting about it. I'm going to leave that as is, but it does look like we're not seeing anything resembling a line. So I'm just going to draw a line. We'll draw one manually from 0, 0 to 300, 300, and we'll draw it as green. I just want to see, have we got something wrong now with the draw line routine? The lines that we saw before when we were plotting the routes, they're actually drawn using decals. So, okay, good. So the draw line routine isn't foobar. That's good. What I'll emphasize before now, if I go to draw this, say for example, from -100, -100 to 30,000 by 30,000, previously it would just have drawn that huge line. Now it should, fingers crossed, should clip it in the right place. So it's really only drawing the pixels that can be seen on the screen. That will actually be quite a significant optimization for anything that's using a line drawing sort of fundamentally, which of course the wireframe PegX is. So the extension doesn't care about doing the clipping. We're leaving that. Oh, there's my spider. We're leaving that to the Pixel game engine now intrinsically to do that clipping. I see Morris and Magetza were having a bit of a barney, are they? Do you have to make a route to make a spaceship before it tries to one? Yes, we have to sort of manually at the moment sort of connect two things together. When we start adding sort of usability features, we'll have it so you can physically see the route as you're constructing it. Documenting code seems to be a problem for quite a few people. Yeah, you do need to document code, particularly for me. The time of year when I write most of my code happens to be just before Christmas, because if you follow the YouTube channel, I usually stop at the end of November, early December, and I don't do any videos until February. So I've got 2 months there, and that's usually where I work on all of the things that I want to do in the following year. This year is obviously a bit different. But in sort of this December last year, I started working on this wireframe utility, and I want to get it working, and I just need to understand why it's not working. So I'm going to try and just simplify things considerably at the moment. We're going to nip out of the system here. Oh, that's the word I'm looking for. You can tell I'm tired, can't you? We're going to nip out of the system and just going to do this manually whilst we've got a working line being drawn. We know that this seems to be a sensible place to be drawing anything at all, so we'll try that. And it might be, I'm wondering if the transformed view itself is starting to kick up a bit of a fuss, but we'll have a look. Oh, of course it's not going to draw any ships, is it? We didn't place any routes. We need... It's like... Okay, it's clicking. We're getting there. Well, there's a nice gear complete with nodes. Oh, dear. Right. Okay. And there's a little origin tag. And because we're not clearing the screen, well, that looks pretty funky, doesn't it? So let's put the clearing back in. Now, this may stop things from being drawn. We'll just double check. Mickey Maven, gonna give the one you watched was decent. Oh, thank you very much. The videos are not tutorials by any means. They're just sort of interesting ideas people can play with. There we go. So we've got a wireframe model rendered now in the transformed view. Very nicely. We can get rid of all the nodes and the origin markers. So the origin thing will also point depending on the heading. So we can experiment with that, for example. So let's say I wanted now to change the model of the spaceship. So mod spaceship. We know it's a gear. Let's say if I set the rotation, for example, have I got a variable that's just increasing that I can use somewhere? I've got a feeling we did create one. Total time. There we go. So if I take this total time... Ooh, a bat just flew past the window. There's all sorts going on. Wildlife today, isn't it? If I take this total time rotation, that's in radians. It might be a bit too quick. But I can set the rotation of my model. Complaining about casting because that's what C++ does now. It's all it does. And there we go. So we've got our rotating object in wireframe happening in the space. So the actual Pixel Game Engine extension for wireframe is reasonably easy to use. And we can specify not to draw all of these nodes and the origin handle anyway. So I quite like it. I think it's a nice extension. So the plan is now we can stop drawing that line. Well, I'll show you what's the next interesting thing. So let's do something interesting with this. Let's add a child to that model. Where is my thing? So why is this useful? So let's go to mmod spaceship dot. How did I do this? Attach, I think it was. Attach. And I can attach to it another model. So what I want to do now, I'll create another model. Let's go to our main. We've got mod spaceship. And we'll just have mod extra just for the time being. We're proving a point here. So mod extra. And we'll set mod extra to be just a rectangle. Mod extra dot set mesh OLC wire mesh rectangle, and we'll specify it to be what have we got here? I don't know. We'll specify it to be 20 by 20. Should that be enough? So 20.0, 20.0, and we'll specify an offset here to be 10 by 10. So we're actually referencing the middle of the rectangle mesh. And I can take my spaceship and I can attach to it the model that we've just created. So mmod extra. And I can specify whereabouts on here do I want to attach it. Well, let's not attach it directly to the... Well, let's attach it to the middle for the time being. So we'll just attach it directly dead center. Is that going to work? What have I missed? Oh, it's a pointer to the model that I was expecting. Okay. So there we go. I'm attaching my extra model, so we don't care about that. I'm still just going to render the spaceship. The spaceship now knows that it's got children. So what we should see now is a gear, but with a square or a rectangle somehow located on the gear. We'll have a look. Yeah, there we go. So we've created this child object. It's completely handled by the transforms of its parents. And this is where we can have these sort of interesting sort of scene graph relationships between what's going on. And just to prove a point here, if I set that, for example, to be offset to, say, 50 along that axis. I'm just looking at the scales we've put in by 0, 0. And we'll rotate it a little bit too. So let's rotate it by just something, I don't know, 1.3 radians. Let's have a look at that. There we go. So it's off center and it's slightly at an angle, but it maintains the relationship with its parent. And of course, you can keep doing this, and you can then specify the angles of the joints of things that you've got connected. So you can end up with these quite elaborate structures of wireframe drawing. Now, we're slightly maybe getting towards the end of the stream now. One of the things that we've also got in our arsenal is draw polygon decal. That's currently not implemented as part of the wireframe extension, but I will add that, because then we can add fully textured polygons with arbitrary relationships to each other into the framework. So the plan today was to test, does that actually draw? It does. Let's put the drawing back in, because I've got a feeling as soon as we start drawing the decals, we're going to not be able to see that anymore. So roots, asteroids, moons, planets, stars. I've no idea why we've got some background stars appearing. Worry about that at some other point, but hey, it's there. I think it's just set up as a layer. Right, yeah, so the big gear that we were drawing we can't see because the gear is actually behind the sun at the moment, but we should be able to specify a route. Let's just see what happens. So satellite, let's put in another satellite, and let's specify a route between that one and this one. There we go. Has that now created anything at all? It's slowly drifting across the sun. I've got a feeling when it leaves the boundary of the sun, we should be able to see it being drawn. He says optimistically. I've no idea what to expect. Also, no idea what the actual scale of anything really is. can't see it. Oh, hang on. That's because now we're not translating the shape, are we? So we're setting its identity, and we're just basically saying you're going to exist at 0, 0. That's no good. We do want to move the spaceship to the right location in space. Now, our transform view is going to handle that for us. So if I go to mod spaceship, and I want to set its offset, don't I? So set position. And I'm going to set the position of the model to be equal to the component position of the spaceship. There we go. I'm also just going to take out of the main drawing routine where we were just hacking this, where we're setting this all up again, because I don't want that, but I do want the update. I don't want that, and I don't want that, just to avoid confusion. Yes, so it's not going to rotate. It should just start drawing. Now, based on where it is in space, and I probably want to do that there. Right, let's try that. So we need to do this again. We need to go and quickly hack together. Let me just move this out the way. I want to quickly hack together a space station, one there, and let's have one here, and we'll route from there to there, and there we go. Right, so there is our spaceship, complete with constructed geometry, autopiloting towards the space station that we wanted. So this is quite nice. So this means we can now add sort of debug overlays quite easily to the Space Thing game engine with very minimal drawing costs. Because before we had considerable drawing costs. Remember, in all of the previous episodes, if we zoomed in on something like this, it would draw millions and millions of pixels because there was no clipping. Now that's not the case, so it's actually quite efficient to render these debug structures on top. And we're going to be using these debug structures quite a lot to visualize things like what the AI is thinking, what the autopilot is going to do, what are the paths that ships are going to take around the system, and arbitrary trajectories and other just any kind of information we want that might help us along. So I think the wireframe extension is a good addition to this, albeit with oddly used gears to demonstrate a point. So yeah, I mean, don't ever expect anything to be normal on this channel. We test things with all sorts of shapes and interesting things, but I quite like that that's working well. I'm wondering if is it also rotating? It's not rotating at the moment, is it? Well, we could change the heading of the spaceship. Even though it's a gigantic gear at the moment, to reflect the nature of the ship. The plan is to sort of change this to be a triangle that just represents the ship is moving in this direction. And we'll replace the ship with an interesting graphic at some point later on. The triangle is obviously a much simpler model. I don't have something that's a mesh create triangle function just at the moment. That's okay, I'm not too worried about that. But I also don't have the ability to draw as a textured polygon into the wireframe extension. So that's also something I'm going to add before the next episode, because I think that's going to be very useful. And that will probably be the sign that the extension is mature enough to be released. I will also need to sort out this sort of selectivity based upon the rendering engine being used. So transform view at the moment, it looks like the function in the extension is expecting some scaling functions. Let's go and find that. Where is it? Wireframe, there we go. Wireframe, it's expecting. Where is it expecting something? In the drawing routine. Okay, it's expecting it in these odd functions. Right, so these are the debug information overlay because I have to sort of choose some sensible values. Maybe there's a different way to go about doing that, and you just specify them manually as part of the operation. Yeah, that's probably actually the way to do it. We can specify some default values for them because it purely is debug information. It's not a functional thing used in the world. So we can probably get away from using this scale to world function here. Yeah, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And I think that's probably enough for this episode. So that's the Wireframe extension. It's a slightly more modern extension, and it's sort of paving the way for, I think, how extensions might be written in the future. Wow, 97 viewers, quite a few people here. Thank you to all those that have followed and subscribed whilst I'm away. Oddly, for some reason, a lot of people tend to join whilst I'm not on the stream. I know there's a lot of new people coming that may be coming from the YouTube channel. Just a quick heads up. If you don't know, I've obviously had a very life-changing couple of weeks, and currently the YouTube channel is running a bit slower than I would like. Videos are going to be sort of every 6 to 8 weeks rather than every couple of weeks. As a replacement, I'm doing these streams, and the videos of these streams are uploaded on the Javid X9 Extra channel, and I've still every intention of doing 2 of these streams a week, but the show is only for an hour. Of course, I'm always on the Discord server and always accessible to talk about these things and the video. So I'm going to say thank you all very much, and I wish you all the best, and I'll see you on Friday, hopefully. Take care.